In this video, we are looking at writing equations of a line in slope-intercept form. Remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is our y-intercept. So we look at our first problem here. It says to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form that has a slope of 1/3 and a y-intercept of -5. So we identify our slope as 1/3. We identify our y-intercept as -5, and then we just substitute these values into our form. So y equals the slope times x minus 5, the y-intercept. Okay, for b, we're going to need to interpret this information that they give us in the word problem. When a tow truck is called, the cost per mile of a service is $10 plus $1 per mile. So our rate of change, also called our slope, is $1 per mile. Our y-intercept is our beginning point. We began at $10 and then we're going to add to that $1 per mile. So we say y is equal to the slope times x plus that $10 per mile. Or we could just say y equals x plus 10. In C, we are looking at a situation where we're given a point and a slope, but this point is not the y-intercept. So we will use our x value and our y value that they give us, and we'll use our slope, which is our m, and we'll substitute these into this equation and figure out what our y-intercept is. So we know that x is going to be -3 and that y is going to be -2. So we just substitute these values in here for the m and the b and set those equal to y. So we have a slope of 3 times our x value, which is -3, plus b is equal to -2. So now we take 3 times -3, which is -9, plus our b is going to be equal to -2. We solve for b by adding 9 to both sides. So we end up with b equals 7. So our equation in slope-intercept form is y equals a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of 7. So we have a y equals 3x plus 7. In choice D, or option D here, we have to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form that contains these 2 points. Neither of these points is the y-intercept, and nowhere does it tell us explicitly what the slope is, so we're going to have to use the 2 points in the slope formula to find the slope. So we have y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So here we have x sub 1 and y sub 1, x sub 2 and y sub 2. So we do -1 minus 7 over 3 minus -1. So this gives us a -8 over 4. So my slope is going to be -2. So now we choose one of these points. It doesn't matter which one. And we'll do the same thing that we did in C. So I'll just go ahead and choose the first point. And I'm going to use the slope that I found and say that the slope times my x value plus b is equal to 7. -2 times -1 is 2. So what do we do now? We get rid of that 2 by subtracting 2 from both sides. And we're left with b equals 7 minus 2, which is 5. So now I have a slope of -2 that I found by plugging the 2 points into the slope formula. Then I used the slope-intercept form and the m and the x and the y value that I had to solve for b. Now that I know what m and b actually are, I can now write the equation of the line as -2x plus 5. In our next example, we are given a graph. It says to write the equation of the graph of the graph line in slope-intercept form. Well, right here they've made it very easy for us to find b. This is our b right here. This is slope-intercept, and this is going to be -1. So let's put that over here. b is equal to -1. Now we have to figure out our slope. So they've also graphed another point over here for us to make that very easy for us. So all we do is count. We do our change in y, which is we're going up 2, over our change in x, which is going to be going left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So our slope is going to be -2/5. So we simply plug the slope and y-intercept into the form, the slope-intercept form of the equation, which is mx plus b, but in this case, because b is a negative, we just say minus. So we end up with y equals -2/5 x minus 1. In our last example, we are given an equation in standard form, and all we have to do here is solve for y. So remember, to solve for y, we move the x and change the sign. Divide by the number in front of the y. Don't forget to simplify. So to move the x and change the sign, we're going to end up with a -2y, because remember, every number has a sign and every sign has a number. And when we move this -3x to the other side, it becomes a +3x because it's on the opposite side. So we have -2y equals 3x plus 12. Now we divide everything by the number in front of the y, and then we simplify. And that's a negative, and it doesn't matter whether you put the negative with the top, bottom, or out front. Here, 12 divided by -2 is -6. So we have y is equal to -3/2x minus 6. So very briefly again, when you are given slope and an intercept, simply substitute those values into the y-intercept form. You may be given a word problem where you have to figure out which one is the rate of change, and that slope is our rate of change. Pull that out, and then the other number is your beginning number, and then again simply substitute those values into the slope-intercept form. Sometimes they will give you the slope and they'll give you a point that's on the line but not the y-intercept, so that means you got to figure out what b is. Well, of these 4 letters, they've given you 3 of them, so you can find the other one. So we take our slope times our x plus b equals y, which is -2. And then just solve for b, and then take your slope of 3 and your y-intercept of 7 and substitute those into the slope-intercept form. For this one, they gave us 2 points, which means that in a sense they gave us the slope. We just have to work a little bit to get it. So since we have 2 points, we can find the slope, and you can do that by plugging that into the formula, or you can just go to stat and put the -1 and the 3 into L1 and the 7 and the -1 into L2, and then do your calculate number 4, which is linear regression, and pull out that a, which should give you a -2. Now that you've got slope, use one of these points. It doesn't matter which one you use, you will still come out with the slope-intercept being a 5. So we plugged in our x and our slope and our y, we solved for b, and that's how we got the 5. So then we go back to the slope-intercept form, put in the slope that we found and the intercept that we found, and there's our equation of the line. When you're given a graph, find the intercept. You can see that's where the line crosses the y-axis. That value is your b, and then just count from that point to any other point on the line, and put that in for your slope, and then you have your equation of the line there. And then if you're given it an equation in standard form and they want it written in slope-intercept form, simply solve for y. You've been having a lot of practice at that, so I expect you to be very good at doing that. So that should be an easy one for you. So this is writing the equation of a line in slope-intercept form.